Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching us today. We had to change our platform because Instagram Live was acting a little strange today, but we have plenty of other technology to go back on. So thank God for that. Well, today I am joined by Jade Cameron, and we're going to be talking about weight gain during HA recovery, which is a big topic in HA recovery, and I think something that many of us struggle with. And before we get into that, because there's a lot to discuss, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce ourselves in case anyone doesn't know who we are. I'll start with myself and then I'll turn it over to Jade. So my name is Ximena. I am a dietitian in the US, and I work with women who have missing periods and have been struggling with HA and want to get pregnant. So that's kind of my focus. And before I turn it over to Jade, I just want to say that Jade has a wonderful podcast called It's a Mind Game. And if you've never listened to it, you should definitely take a listen because it's just very relatable and very easy to listen to. So if you haven't, definitely check it out. And with that said, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Jade and I'm the host of the It's a Mind Game podcast. And all of that sort of eventuated from my own journey, adventure, roller coaster of 6 years of HA and the eating disorders that went alongside with that. So I am a personal trainer and I'm also a mindset coach. So I guess that is my specialty now. And in particular, I work with women to overcome the mental blocks that are preventing them from recovering their period and overcoming their eating disorders. Because, you know, as we've spoken about many times and those heart-to-heart conversations with our clients too, is that sometimes that eat more, train less, like it's the simplest prescription. The words are simple, it's minimal dose. But in order to get your brain to allow you to do that it's tough, and it takes a lot of rewiring of thoughts and conscious effort to get from where you are to where you need to be. So that was the development of the It's Mind Game podcast, and also how I now work with women.
Yes, all of that. Yes, it is. It's definitely the eating more, train less sounds so simple, but it's so much more than that, like you pointed to. And I think that kind of segues into my first question, which is I want to know a little bit more about your story. I know a little bit, and I'm sure some people listening might know, but I like to learn a little bit more. Can you tell us when it started, how long you struggled with it? How did you realize you had HA? All the details.
Yeah, of course. So as you know, like it's hard to condense such a massive timeline, but I'll try and give you like the key points of it. And if anyone wants to know more, by all means, DM me anytime. So essentially, I had just finished my personal training course. I was 20 years old. I was on the high of health and fitness. Like, this is the best thing ever. And I just broke up with my boyfriend, who wasn't the nicest creature. And I'm going to do this best me, best ever thing. And I thought, well, I've just finished my personal training course. What better way to showcase all my skills and knowledge than to do a bodybuilding competition? And then I decided I'm going to do a 12-week prep. I'm going to reduce my calories. I'm going to do this training regime, and I'm going to get on stage, and it's just going to be fabulous. And honestly, that was a really good time of my life. Like, I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed the dieting. I got a top 3 place on stage, and I thought I'd found my life purpose. Like, this is it. And you know what? I loved how I looked. At that point in time, I was like, no, you've done good.
Yeah.
With that come all of the praise and the admiration. And, you know, I was pretty shy. So I found it hard to talk to people about like random conversations off the cuff. But I found when I was bodybuilding, I found it really easy to talk to, especially guys my own age, because I just talk about training. I'm like, oh, this is effortless. So it was also a social thing. It was really easy for me to connect with people that I previously couldn't. So there was so much in hindsight being attached to this part of my life.
Yeah.
Slingshot forward, did the comp, thought, this is it. This is my forever after. I'm going to stay like this forever. I didn't know any better. Yeah. I decided to compete 6 weeks later, and I decided to keep dieting to get leaner and leaner. And gosh, 2 weeks after that comp, I had my first binge and purge episode, and I will remember it being the most scary, terrifying thing on the planet. I felt like something just washed over me and I couldn't control a thing. And I ate all this food and I couldn't stop until my belly was so full that I just ran to the bathroom and threw it up. Like there was no thoughts, it was just this intense thing that overcome me. And then I just remember crying for like half an hour. Like, what just happened?
That must have been so scary.
Was that? It was. And the shame, like, one, you don't eat those foods. And it was pretty effortless for me to say no to, I'm just going to say junk food, but you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I couldn't control myself. I was this animal, and it was so bizarre. So of course I squashed that memory. I squashed the shame. It never happened and it won't happen again. I'm going to go to the gym, train, diet even more. And of course the binges and purging kept happening. I competed a second time. I hated it. I hated being on stage. I didn't want the attention because you know what? The shame was huge. Yeah. People are going, oh, you're so lean, leaner than you've ever been. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm throwing up all my food. Like, of course I'm not gaining weight. Of course I'm lean. And you feel like you can't let the person in on your story because they think you're amazing.
Yeah. You have to hold that image of yourself.
Yeah. Like I liked inspiring people to be healthy. I really did. And I still do. But at the time I didn't know any better. And the bulimia continued for quite some time, and it has ebb and flows. Yeah. Like I'd have periods where I'd binge and purge every day for weeks, and then I wouldn't do it for a couple of weeks, and then I would, and then I wouldn't, and then I met my now husband, and he was right into bodybuilding and dieting and competing. So we had so much to bond over there. I remember him making a claim that I would hit 60 kilos. And at the time, I think I was 52. I'm 5'8". I'm quite tall. And I burst into tears, and he goes, what's wrong with you? I'm like, oh my God, I will never, I will never get that weight. And he just went like, but every year you're going to get stronger. Like your muscle mass is going to go up. And like, why are you reacting like this? Yeah. And that's when he first learned of my issues around food and dieting. And
was he, can I ask you something? Was he the first one that kind of was in on what was going on for you?
I had told my mum about it around about the same time. Like, so I held on to the secret for ages, like a good year, I think. Okay. Because just the shame. And I always thought I can fix it by myself, which, don't get me wrong, like I did end up fixing it by myself, but it wasn't me that caused it. So my husband turned around and said, look, I really care about you and I really want to be with you, but this bulimia side, it's either me or bulimia. Like you take your pick. And thank goodness he had that conversation with me, because I adore him more than anyone ever. And I needed that. And it was a very hard conversation of, okay, I'm going to try my best to stop this, but I need you to know that it's not as simple as just stop, because otherwise I would have done that already. Yeah. So back and forth, we got over the bulimia with that tremendous amount of support and confidence in me that I could do it.
And was the support just coming from your husband, or were you getting other outside support?
No, it was just my husband. I did try and see a psychologist once, and I'm massive on finding the help that suits you best. And this psychologist that I saw pretty much had the attitude of just eat more. If I could, I would. Like, I need a little more than that. But no, I was really lucky that for me, the idea that I made the deal with my husband. If I was ever going to purge, I had to tell him about it. Okay. And I just it hurt my heart to need to say that conversation and go, look, this happened today.
Yeah.
So yes, it did happen, but knowing, like, when my head would tick into, we're going to do it, because that's what happens. It's like, all right, where's all the food? We've got a plan. And then that would tick over. And then I go, hang on, but if you do this, you need to tell him straight away.
You're being held accountable.
Yeah. And that really worked for me, because it's like, I don't want to have to tell him. I don't want to. Yeah. And, yes, it happens sometimes, but for the most part, that nudged me out of bulimia. But then because I was eating more, or not even necessarily eating more, but I wasn't having that element anymore. I needed to train more. I think that was like my loophole, because you're not doing this, you need to train more, which, this whole journey is a massive 2-step forward, 1 step back, 2-step forward, 1 step back. So that was my next step. It's like, okay, well, I wasn't bulimic anymore. I was still undernourishing for sure. Like, I had so many rules, but I wasn't midging and purging. So that was like tick, tick, tick. And I thought that was my healthier self. And then I started CrossFit, and I found this community of people that were like, hey, you've got to eat to train. Like, you're strong and fit already, but imagine how much better you can be if you're not on these tiny little calories. And being in that community, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. I can get around this. And I started eating more. Wow. And I started training better, and I started feeling really good. So again, I was like, I'm done. Like, this is perfect. I'm good. Like, I eat pizza, I eat peanut butter, I train. This is life. Yeah. And then I was approached, and this is like over 6 years as well. I randomly would do fasting and, not eat for 20-hour periods. I woke up one week and decided I wasn't going to eat for 4 days because my digestion needed rest. And
those sneaky little diet culture messages.
And look, at the time, I honestly believed that I thought I was giving myself a rest, but I look back now and I'm like, you are looking for a loophole to drop weight quickly. Yeah. And that was a perfect fit for you. And then my wedding was soon approaching. So years fast forward, on the HA front, I had been to specialists saying, where's my period? And they just said, go on the pill. Like, it'll show up on the pill. And I didn't want to, because, the pill's associated with weight gain, and it did make me gain weight when I was on it. It was for no reason other than the toxicity or anything. Thank God. Because I'm so glad I didn't jump on the pill. And then I just started Googling, like, no period, where's my period, missing period, athletes, all that deal, and stumbled across no period, now what? As so many women do. Yeah. And I'm just reading through all these things and going, oh my gosh, this is me. But I'm not ready. Surely the all-in aspect isn't the cure. Surely not.
Can I ask you a question? When did you notice that your period was missing?
Oh, back when I competed. So
so that's when it started.
Yeah, so I was 20, but I can't honestly remember. I know I went off the pill soon before I started that prep, and I really can't tell you if I had a period in between. Yeah. And that's my level of care. Like, I've actually got no idea. Yeah. So my HA, I date from comp stage day, because I 100% know I didn't have it then, but it actually could have been a year or two before that. I'm not sure. And then read all that info, didn't want a bar of it. And then my wedding was approaching, and I just randomly started being like, maybe I want children. And because I'd read this content that I've got the capacity to do it. Sorry, that's, I guess, the other thing. Fertility specialist told me I was infertile, and that's my story. And you can go on Clomoid and injections, and we can get it done, but not naturally. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's not my cup of tea. And it's okay if it's anyone else's, but for me personally, it's not my cup of tea. And then my wedding come up. This is 2017, and I dieted down for my wedding, and I got really lean. And honestly, I don't regret it. Like, I really liked how I looked on my wedding day, and I felt great and all those things. Yeah. And then my husband mentioned something in our vows saying that he would love to grow a family with me. And literally within that, and that was the happiest day of my life, my wedding, like, amazing. something clicked, like, you don't only owe it to yourself to get your period back, like you owe it to this man who's going to honor you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And again, best thing that ever happened, because then a week after our wedding, we had a chat and I'm like, look, I'm going to gain some weight. I'm going to stop training. It's going to be hard. And I need you to just hold my hand. And he did. And a year later, I got my period back, 11 months half in, 4 weeks all in. And then I was pregnant with my daughter 4 months.
Wow.
4 months later.
That's amazing. It's so amazing how you often need something to have you make that click and be like, all right, I have to do this. And it can be so different for everyone. But once you get that click, it's amazingly fast how quickly your body does what it needs to do, because it wants to be healthy and recovered and be fertile. That's what your body wants. So it's working as hard as it can to get you there, but your mind needs to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, people always go to finding your why. And yes, that is so true. But sometimes I think we're led to believe that our why is always such a personal decision. And it absolutely can be. But for me, the big staples were, I can't lose the man of my dreams. And I want to facilitate a space that we can live the best life we possibly can.
Yeah.
So it was a collective why, it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes exploring your motivation for recovering your period or your eating disorder, yes, there's a massive part about you want your health back, but you might need to draw some power from people you love.
Yeah, for sure. And I always say that support and accountability in that community from others is so important for recovery, because they can give you stuff that you need to push you and motivate you that you might not find for yourself.
Yeah. And look, I love that when I was reducing training, and my husband would say to me sometimes, because, at the time he was training 2-3 times a day as well. Like that was our life. We were the fit couple, always dieting, always training. And there was times where I'd just be upset. Like I miss our life training and all these things. And he'd go, oh, you know what? I'm not sure if I could do what you're doing. And you know what? It was just really nice to hear.
Yeah.
Because he could understand that, like, if that was him in my shoes, he's not quite sure he could do it.
Right.
And I found that really comforting for someone, especially someone who trained as much as I did.
Yeah.
Because other people are like, oh, you crazy cat, like just take a break. And I'm like, you don't get it. But he understood that obsessive nature of training.
Yeah.
And for him to go, oh, like, yeah, good job.
Yeah.
It really helped. So even just finding people who get you, and whether that is your nutritionist or your dietitian, your psychologist, your best friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, find someone who gets you on that level of training and nutrition, because if they can go, oh, good job, it really means something to you. Yeah. So much more than just, oh yeah, take a week off, like whatever, well done. It feels so different.
Absolutely. It's such a big difference to have someone truly in your corner. And we've been talking a lot about, body changes, and I'm curious to know, how did you face the idea of having to gain weight and seeing your body change?
Yeah. So before I even decided to go half in, I grit my teeth about it for a couple of months, because surely gaining weight isn't the answer to healing. Surely. Yeah. Like we've programmed ourselves for so long that being this thin version of yourself, or lean version, muscular version, whatever version you want to label it as, is the answer. And then suddenly someone going, and especially breaking the food rules too, like go eat junk food. And it's actually so much more than eating. It's like got nothing to do with it really, because calories are calories. We just need more intake. Yeah. It's the idea of breaking food rules. Like, as you know, you can recover from HA by never touching processed food, because you've just had high caloric intake. But the thing is, what's the reason behind not having those foods? Is it because you're afraid, or is it because you've got an intolerance or an allergy? Like, of course.
Yeah.
Or is it because you've demonized this food? So once I got over the gritting of my teeth, and reading lots of recovery stories, like this isn't someone trying to trick me into getting fat, because that's the thing too, isn't it? Everyone's trying to trick me. Why?
Yeah. And especially I think it's so hard
and
if your goal is fertility, when all you see are messages of, maybe you should think about your weight or focus on your weight and your body before getting pregnant. And there's so many of those messages everywhere, that it can be really confusing.
Absolutely, because it's like you want to be your healthiest self, and you go, but I'm my healthiest self, but you don't have a period, so you're actually not. But yes, such a complicated situation. Look, the weight gain side of things, I remember the first couple of weeks I just felt great. Like the added calories, my weight didn't shift, so I was like, oh, this is so easy. What's everyone complaining about? Like, I can do this. And then you start to see the changes, and it's confronting, and it's painful, and it's a roller coaster. It took me a long time, but the biggest shift was learning to appreciate my body for its function rather than what it looks like. Because I guess a key thing to look at is, by that point, no matter how lean you are or whatever your physique is, you're so critical by then. So you're not like, I'm glorious, you're critical. So reminding yourself of that helps. It's like, I love myself when I was like this. And it's like, did you? Because I'm pretty sure you were trying to just starve yourself even more. But yeah, so a big part for me was function. So I used to recite things like, I'm so grateful for my eyes to see the expressions on my family's faces. I'm so grateful for my arms to be able to give someone a cuddle. I'm so grateful for my legs. I can roam the world. I'm so grateful for my lips. Like I can kiss and I can taste food. I'm grateful for my nose to smell. I'm grateful for my stomach for housing all these organs that keep me alive. And I think back to my mindset back then, and if someone had have said this stuff, I would have been, please. Like, that's not comforting. But the thing is, if you recite it for long enough, it's the only language you know. So now if someone says, what do you think about your body? I'm like, oh, it's great. Like, look at me. I can walk and I can jump and I can hug and I can, like, it's incredible. It's not, oh yeah, look, I'm heavier than I used to be, and look, I have those moments, of course. But for the most part, if someone says like feedback about your body, I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. Look at my capacity to live. Like, this is my vessel.
You were able to rewire those neurons,
which is why I love mindset work, because it's so crucial. Because suddenly my weight didn't matter, because I'm like, look how cool my body is. Like, look what it does. It's this incredible machine. And then on the weight gain side too, just the classic, I guess, on repeat things is get rid of the clothes that are too tight, find clothes that are comfortable. And I found it really empowering to remove all my Fitspo people on Instagram and Facebook. So I wasn't seeing this 6-week shred. I wasn't seeing these flat tummies, because for some reason, abs and thighs have always been my focal point. Like, I want to see who's got abs, and I want to see how small people's legs are or how shredded their legs are. So I got rid of it. I filled my Instagram with obviously friends and family, but people with like everyday physiques that I really admired their fashion sense, or I really liked their travel locations. So suddenly I had this influence of people with like a common healthy body. And it desensitized me, where I was like, oh, I'm like everybody. Rather than just looking at these really lean girls going, oh my gosh, I'm so fat compared to them. And that's the thing, compare. We need to distance ourselves from comparison. So that Instagram audit allowed that space for that to happen, because I'm just going, oh, hey, we're all the same here. Like, all right, we've got some cellulite. Oh, we might have a dimple in our stomach, or, and it just took me away from this epitome of health.
And sometimes you don't even notice how much of an effect social media can have. If you're just scrolling or whatever, it's still there. You're still seeing it. So it absolutely is impacting you, but you might not be aware of it. And I'm curious to know, if you noticed during the recovery phase, if you noticed anything in your body that changed, the function of your body that changed, apart from fertility, but because you were focusing on the function of your body, was there something that improved with recovery?
So look, I remember the first months, which is why I questioned it so much, is I honestly felt like I got hit by a bus when I started eating more and resting. It's like I finally gave my body a chance to recover, and it said, yeah, I'm going to make you feel everything. I felt sore, I felt achy, I felt lethargic. I almost felt sick, and it made me go like, what is this? You felt so much better before. And because before I was running off adrenaline, like I had no time to feel anything. So there was the hit by a bus period. But then I did start to feel emotionally and physically free. Like I remember sometimes being like, oh, I'm just going to go for coffee after work. I'm not going to run to the gym and already have my food prepped, and maybe I'm just going to go home and I'm going to read for a little bit, or I'm just going to stretch, or maybe I'm just going to sunbathe, like in daylight savings in summer. I'm not in front of anyone. I'm just in my backyard, so I'm not self-conscious. I'm just going to enjoy some sun. And I had time to do things. But I guess on the function side, a bit TMI for some people, but I would use my bowels maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks.
So common.
And like, because there was nothing to dispose of. And I never thought anything of that either. I was like, oh, well, at least I didn't need to worry about going to the loo. But no, I started using my bowels more. My digestion struggled at the start, but then my digestion can pretty much cope with anything. So I was getting like bloating, heartburn, reflux, which my bulimia hid back in. So there was a phase where I was bulimic again. And my husband pulled me up on it, like, what are you doing? Why are you going to the toilet all the time after dinner? I was like, oh, I've just got reflux, like so bad. And once it's gone, my reflux goes. He goes, that's not reflux. Like you're throwing up your dinner. And I was like, I reduced to tears and just fell on the floor because I had no idea. I had no idea your eating disorder could be that sneaky.
And it's often, I think, because that was your coping mechanism for so long before, and that's your body just reverted to that.
And I did, honestly, until he pointed it out, I was like, oh my god, I just made myself throw up. I've done it all week. But yeah, they were probably the main things. A few girls comment about like nails and hair, but I must admit I don't remember experiencing hair loss, and I don't remember having brittle nails, but I was freezing cold all of the time, freezing cold. So yes, that was absolutely a massive difference. Oh, and libido. Like I was always intimate with my husband, but I never really had that. Like there's a glow feeling when you've got a libido. And from the time I was 20, I remember my girlfriends talking about, intimacy and things. And I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like it just didn't. It was a nothing. And they'd be like, well, what about you? I'm like, oh, I'm really happy with my intimate life, but it's just not, it's not that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden my hormones started kicking back in. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm thinking about being intimate, and I never used to. So that was a massive change as well. And it's a fun change. I mean, as an adult who's with a partner that they absolutely adore, to have that interest, like it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It just opens up so many new areas of your life, or perhaps forgotten areas of your life that hadn't been cared for before.
Absolutely.
And I know so a lot of women are hoping to get pregnant after, or recover their period and get pregnant. How did the experiencing all these changes in your body and your weight before getting pregnant impact when you did get pregnant? Was there, because often women who do get pregnant without recovering really struggle with the changes that your body goes through during pregnancy. And I'm curious to see how that experience was for you.
So I love this question because it's like one of my favorites. Not gonna lie, a week or 2 weeks before I realized I was pregnant, So I'd had 3 recovery periods over 4 months. I skipped one because I started running. I got a bit excited and then it didn't show up. So I was like, okay, I'll go back. I've got photos on my phone of me in my underwear and a bra because I was ready to drop the weight. Like, I've had my 3 periods. This is what I look like now. And honestly, it wasn't to go back to what I was. I had no interest in that, but I just wanted to be a little bit less.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, that's a whole other conversation, but there is a space for that if you're doing it in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I had my positive pregnancy test. And of course, like, all of that went out the window.
Yeah.
I was just so happy and thrilled. And like, my body did something I never thought possible. And it was like the icing on the cake of that last shred of my, like, that desire to sort of lose weight for me. It was almost another level of healing, because again, it was function. It's like you fell pregnant, like you're growing a human. And then throughout my pregnancy, I've sort of said a few times in my other podcasts, I felt that with my pregnancy, I had never been as in tune with my hunger in my life. Like, I was very clearly ravenously hungry, or I was just not.
Yeah.
And I think because I had so much faith in my hunger cues when I was pregnant, it didn't bother me if I gained weight, because like, I ate foods that felt good for my body and that were nourishing. And I don't know, it just created this new window of, well, you need fuel to grow this human. And, you know, I had some awful morning sickness for the first 12 weeks and I ate foods that I've never eaten in years because I couldn't stomach anything else. But I found that quite healing because I had no choice. Like, my body's telling me, and some days it was just rice cakes, you know, like boring, dull. But that's what my body needed right now. So, and then the changes through pregnancy, I just love being pregnant. I really did.
I agree. Same here.
And like, the weight gain happened and I'd see myself some days and like, yeah, you've gained weight. But I just look at my belly and like, who cares? Like, who cares? And I am so happy to help women through that journey if they're not feeling that way, because there's reasons why you're struggling to enjoy the weight gain. Like, we can help you be able to enjoy it. Like, that's a real thing. But I think my HA journey prepared me to be able to enjoy what happens in your pregnancy. And afterwards, I definitely had some struggles. I gained a little bit more weight when I was breastfeeding. And I definitely had those like, let's diet moments. But then I'd always reset myself back to everything I've been through already and what's the purpose behind this. And honestly, the purpose was nearly always I was just stressed, sleep deprived, and dieting's a good crutch. Like, and that's where HA was such a blessing, because every time I'd go, all right, let's diet, I'd be like, come on, what are we doing here? What's the real reason? Like, why? And I'd be like, oh, I'm just so exhausted, or I'm just like, it had nothing to do with my body. Like, I was so proud that I was able to breastfeed and
control.
I just wanted,
somewhere.
And that's the only control I know. I had 6 years of this, and I've had probably 2 years of this. Love your body, nourish. You still revert back.
Oh, for sure. It's what you know.
It's what you know, but it's a superpower knowing that that's what you revert back to when you're stressed. Like, it's actually not a disadvantage. It's so good if you know your habits, because it's like, oh, hang on, let's question this. Let's have a chat. Like, I chat with myself all the time and it stops me from going down some pretty wild paths.
And that's why I think doing recovery before getting pregnant and having a child is so important, because you learn so much about yourself. And it really, and like you mentioned, the postpartum phases for many women can be much harder than the pregnancy phase, because then there's like, well, the baby's out, so why?
And you know what? That's exactly right though, because when I was pregnant, the distraction was, but there's a baby in your belly. And then the baby's not in your belly and you're just left with your full self. And that's where the conflict starts again, because it's not like, well, you're not growing a human anymore. And it's like, but you're loving and supporting one. And you are sacrificing pretty much everything to care for this tiny little being who needs you every moment of every day. And okay, you don't have the time to exercise like you used to, but you know what? You're never going to get these days back with your baby. Like, that is a you can train later. You can train anytime you want if you decide to go
Yes.
down the rabbit hole again. It's fine. You can explore that. But those days with your baby, the tough ones and the glorious ones, like every day that goes by, that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like
You gotta
that's
enjoy
it.
the moments.
And yeah. And you'd hate to look back and go, I wish I just cuddled my baby for that extra hour.
Yeah.
And I used to think that all the time. She's going to be 18 and out with her friends, and I'm just going to want to sit on the couch and cuddle.
Yeah.
And she's going to be like, see ya. So I might just, I'll ditch the gym for today. We'll just cuddle. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. So one question I got from someone was, what are, and we kind of discussed this a little bit, but what are your top tips for dealing with weight gain?
So 100% appreciating function over physical image. So your capacity to eat, to hug, to kiss, to run, to walk, because we're not running in HA recovery. But even like stretching and yoga poses, like an organ function too. Like you've got a stomach that allows you to digest food. You've got a heart that's beating every moment of every minute to keep you alive. You've got a brain that allows you to think and emotions to feel. And so as you can tell, I get very passionate about that. And then also like really thinking about your negative thoughts around your body. So like, let's say, oh, I feel so fat today. It's like that thought does not serve you. Like what benefit is that thought? And it's okay to have it because we all do. But the thing is, what are you going to do with it now? All right, I feel really fat. I'm going to throw that out. I don't need it. Instead, I'm going to go, this body is a trophy of my healing. Like this body right now is all of my health goals in one. Yeah, I'm gaining weight. I'm gaining health. I'm gaining a life that I haven't known for the longest amount of time. I'm gaining my social life back. I'm gaining my love back for myself and for people around me. Yeah. And really dig into actually what you're gaining. And at the start, it's a bit tough. Like I rattle it off like it's easy to me, but I've practiced and practiced and practiced. Yeah. But with the practice and the conscious effort, that's what happens. Like I'm not a special story. I'm not. I just put the effort into rewiring these things. So dig into the self-talk. Like if you have, you're disgusting and lazy. Okay, are you? Yeah. Like why are we thinking that? Because you're sitting on the couch right now watching some Netflix. Okay, that's cool. What's one of the most beneficial healing modalities to recovering your period? Rest. Okay, so you're fat and lazy if you're comparing yourself to someone training for the Olympics. But for someone who's recovering their period, you're the goal. Yeah. Like you need to rest. And that's exactly what you're doing. Tick, 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 tick.
And I think also what you were saying about exploring why that thought is coming up. There's a reason why that thought is coming up and kind of digging into why it's bubbling.
Yeah, absolutely. And to a degree, keeping busy really helps as well, because if you've been training all this amount and dieting all this amount, you're always thinking about food, always thinking about training, suddenly you're in a position where maybe you are just relaxing on the couch and all you can think about is what you're not doing, which is what you're not eating and what you're not training. And distractions are very helpful when used wisely. Yeah. So if you're in a position where every time you try and rest, your brain goes that way, okay, so the next time you go to rest, we're going to have a goal. We're going to read 2 chapters of a book. We're going to watch a documentary and learn something. You're going to have a phone call with a friend. You're going to watch a movie, but you're going to make sure that you're not leaving space for your brain to go there because it wants to. Yeah. Like it really wants to. And learning to go, shh, I'm doing this now. Really helps with managing weight gain because you're only thinking about your weight gain for as long as you're feeling about literally gaining weight. Yeah. And I'll say one more thing because I waffle for too long. I'm so sorry.
No, please.
But the more you eat, the more your anxiety actually drops because we're in that fight flight response all the time from being so hungry. We're naturally in an anxious state all the time. So someone suggests weight gain, you go, like, oh my gosh, like, no, I cannot thrive. I cannot survive in that space.
Yeah,
But you actually
absolutely.
start eating a little bit more. Your anxiety settles down a little bit. And yes, it's back and forth because you're a bit panicky because you're eating, and you're a bit panicky because you're relaxing. But if you can just give yourself a minute to just settle into it and go, oh, okay, this eating actually isn't so bad. This resting actually isn't so bad. But that's a bit of a beautiful dance, because
Yeah.
you need to give yourself the space to be able to go, oh, like I can survive here. I can thrive here. This is safe.
And I also want to add that what you were talking about, the anxiety, that's actually a survival mechanism that your body has, because so your body's doing its best to stay alive, and a very important part of staying alive is making sure you have food and fuel. So if you're feeling anxious, if you're having thoughts about food, then that's your body's way of trying to get you to eat food and make sure that you stay alive. So your body actually loves you.
Yeah. And so I'm just, because with saying that, I remember thinking that I just used to always think about food because like I couldn't wait for my next meal, or I really enjoyed my food. Like it was a very
Or you're
positive
a
thing for me. Like,
foodie.
oh, I can't wait for lunch. I can't wait for
Yeah.
this. All those sorts of things. And then I learned that that sort of thought that I had all the time was a hunger cue.
Yes.
That somewhere along the lines of hold off 3 hours, hold off 10 hours, hold off 24 hours to eat, I started to learn that, no, that's just a commentary that I have all the time. Like everybody does.
Yeah.
Not everybody does. Like you're hungry, honey.
Yeah.
But that was a massive learning curve too, because then it's like, but if I eat the amount of time I've got these thoughts, I'll eat all day.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, at the start, you're going to eat pretty frequently because your brain's like, thank you.
Yes.
But then it slows down. And that's the
Yeah.
scary part, isn't it? It's like, I'll never stop. But you do.
I call that the honeymoon phase of when
Yes.
you're reincorporating food into your life that was previously restricted. And it can be really scary, but like you said, it does ebb once your body gets used to it.
Yeah, and and I've referred to it a few times as like a dance, because that's what it is. Like sometimes the rhythm speeds up and sometimes it slows down, and it's learning to literally like take your hands off the steering wheel and just go, all right, I'm going to trust the process.
Yeah.
And it feels that scary. It's like, well, who's driving the car?
And
it's like, well, you know what, your intuition knows so much better than your conscious, pre-programmed thoughts. So that's what that feeling is. It's like, I'm taking away everything that I've learned as a rule and a behavior and what we must do. And I'm just going to go, all right, body, tell me, just tell me.
I honestly could continue talking about this for days, and I know you could too.
I know, I've probably talked too much already. Sorry.
No. So do you have any last minute words or thoughts for any women who are currently struggling with that weight gain piece?
Yeah. So one, it's hard, right? And if anyone sits there and goes, it's an absolute walk in the park, for some people, if it is, like, I'm so happy for you. Like, it's great. But for the most of us, it's tough, and it is a roller coaster. You're going to have days where you're like, yes, I love this. I got big boobs, bigger bum. And then there's days where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm an elephant.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to live this life? And self-talk is what will get you through every time. Like that whole I'm an elephant. And it's like, no, I'm a person healing from my disorder. I'm a person recovering my period. Like that's me.
Yeah.
And learning those things helps. So I guess if you're in a position where those thoughts are coming in and you don't know what to do with them, you don't know how to squash them and kick them out, reach out to someone who can help you, like rediscover those thoughts and create more positive ones. Because honestly, it's all reprogramming your mindset to thoughts that are going to serve you and care for you and look after you. And if you can learn that skill, HA, eating disorder, pregnancy, work, relationships, you take it everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can teach it to others.
Yeah.
Like so self-talk, 100%, audit your thoughts. And
love it. Well, Jade, thank you so much for joining me. And It is always such a pleasure to talk to you, and I could talk to you forever. So thank you for joining me. And if anyone listening doesn't know where to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on. I absolutely love chatting with you each and every time, and I hope there's more in the future. So yeah, super easy. I'm on Instagram as jade.cameron with a double E for Jade. And if you want to search the podcast, It's a Mind Game on your podcast platforms. And I'm now on YouTube as well as It's a Mind Game if you want to watch the most recent episodes and see our faces.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Until next time.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.